It is my sincere, I'm so glad to be able to introduce Steve Rosenblatt, Dr. Steve Rosenblatt. He has got a lot of good information. He got all family history about all the problems with the Holocaust. So without further ado, I'll say Steve Rosenblatt, please come up here. While he's coming up, one other thing. March Eagle Lunch is not going to be the second Tuesday of the month. Our speaker, one of our speakers, we got two, is coming in from the Ukraine. She is an ophthalmologist, and in Dallas, there's another ophthalmologist that he goes to Ukraine from time to time to help out with all the problems they've got. So they're going to be here, and they were coming to a conference here in San Antonio. So just make yourself a note, March 27th is going to be the Eagle Lunch. Not the second Tuesday, March 27th, okay? February's still going to be the second Tuesday. Thank you.
28th.
Second Tuesday, and then April will go back to the second Tuesday. So just let you know that.
That's a Friday.
Steve, thank you.
Okay. Okay, sounds like that's working. And here's the, okay. Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me. So I had trouble finding the place because I used the navigation on the car and it sent me somewhere about 3 miles there, and then I used another. Eventually I worked my way back. And so I was going to, let me get this to work. All right, first thing I'll come back to my story in a minute. Just tell you a little bit about the Holocaust Museum. This year, whoops, too fast. Too slow. Okay, this year,
Too much, David.
this slide's a year old, and you can see that is it rotating on its own? It shouldn't be doing that. Wrong. Hopefully it stays put. Not touching it. So you can see a year ago we had 47,000 people come through a very small museum, 25,000. Most of these are middle school and high school kids. I know we do get some adults. We also have outreach programs where we have these education boxes they sent out so teachers can use them. A number of community programs. We also educate the San Antonio police cadets. This year we're going to hit close to 60,000 visitors. So I want to show you my military bona fides. This is me. I was a flight surgeon in the Air Force. This is at Holloman Air Force Base. And so these are fun pictures that I took. So, but I did a much better job navigating from the back seat of that than I did getting here. Because I used the computer and it just took me somewhere else. But I remember specifically a low-level navigation run we did over Germany, where I had a map with landmarks and little valleys and steeples from churches along the way, and we're doing this low-level, high-speed run, and I'm calling out landmarks to the pilot, and I'm telling him, 4 clicks on the right, you'll see a steeple, and then on the left, about 10 clicks down, we'll see another little valley. And our job was to find a stop sign at an intersection. We went right over that thing, and I said, okay, but that was the last time I guess I did a good job navigating. All right, let's start the story here. So at the museum, we usually give 2 lectures. One is a history lecture about the Holocaust, the onset of Nazism, and the final solution and all that. And then along comes the second generation. We've run out of first generation people who can give the talks, who have experienced the Holocaust directly, and I do it secondhand, telling you the stories from my mother. And I usually introduce this to the kids, saying that the history is kind of cut and dried. You say, oh, this happened on September 1st, and this happened on this day and that day, and it may just pass right over them. I hope when I teach the kids, I hope when I lecture to you, that one of these stories will stick with you. One of them will have a little bit of an emotional attachment. So you remember, you feel what was going on. This is my mother. She's probably 14 or 15 years old in this picture. She lives in the 2nd District in Vienna, Austria. It's 1938. She goes to a Jewish private day school. She's less than 5 feet tall. She's less than 100 pounds. She's a little girl. She's living a life of just a little girl with her, talking to her girlfriends and things like that. And so life is going along pretty nice. Her father is a jeweler. They're living a middle-class life, and so things are pretty nice. This is her father, my grandfather. I never met him. This is his store. My wife and I think it was on Taberstrasse, one of the main streets. We think we found the store just based on the descriptions we heard, but we don't know for sure. This is my grandmother, her mother. I never met her either. Both of them were killed in Majdanek. They got caught in the Warsaw Ghetto and never got out and were deported there and killed there. This is a close-up of my grandfather. And as a jeweler, this is some of the handiwork he made. We have 2 or 3 pieces that were saved and brought to the United States. And this is a woman's compact. It's from silver. He carved it himself. You open it up, there's a mirror and a place for powder. So this is what he could do. So life is going along pretty well. What's a pogrom? A pogrom is an organized massacre of a particular ethnic group, in particular that of Jewish people in Russia or Eastern Europe in the late 19th and early 20th century. So let me describe some. In the 1880s, 1890s, imagine if this morning you got up and you read in the newspaper, well, in Seguin, that Jewish furniture store was burned to the ground. Or maybe we woke up and heard about the synagogue in Mississippi that got burned. Or maybe we heard last weekend in Dilley, Texas, there was a Jewish merchant who was pulled out in the street and beat up. Let's assume that every weekend you were hearing that in the little villages around here and in downtown San Antonio, there were anti-Semitic incidents of violence occurring all the time. So in the 1880s and 1890s, this was happening all the time under the Tsar. 1 million people got up and left and immigrated out of what's now the Ukraine, Eastern Poland, Northern Romania. All that was called the Pale, and there were probably 2.5–3 million Jews had been living there for 400 or 500 years, or had grown to that number over almost 1,000 years. And so 1 million people left because of these pogroms. And then again in about 1905, 1910, there was a repeat of all this, and again about 1 million people got up and left. What I find interesting, just as an aside, I hope they don't take too long, I got all these stories to tell. We go up to Crested Butte, Colorado, which in the 1880s and 90s was a mining town, coal, silver. There was a kosher butcher there. So it's probably these people coming out of the Ukraine who found jobs in the mines, and then merchants came to provide for their needs. So there used to be a kosher butcher in this little tiny town. So that's what a pogrom is. Well, on November 9th of let me go backwards. In March of 1938, Hitler decides that the Germanic-speaking areas around Germany should be part of Germany. Okay, so there's the Anschluss, the joining, when he decides that Austria, a Germanic-speaking country, should be part of Germany. He marches his troops into Austria. The Austrian government capitulates. Not one bullet is fired, and Austria just turns itself over to Germany, and it becomes a province of Germany. So all these anti-Jewish laws that have evolved from 1933 through 1938, such as if you are Jewish and you're a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, a university professor, a teacher, an Indian chief, whatever, you can't practice that anymore. You're out of a job, okay? You can't go sit in the park anywhere. You have to sit on special benches. You have to wear a Star of David or a yellow armband when you go around. So life is grossly restricted. All of a sudden, in March of 1938, the Nazis roll into Austria, and all those restrictions fall upon the Jews of Austria, including my mother, who now can't go to school anymore. She writes in some letters to her friends how utterly bored she is. She's studying English. She is learning to sew. She's going every month down to the American Embassy consulate office trying to see if there's any way to get papers to get out. So what happens on Kristallnacht? About 1,000 synagogues are burned and destroyed. The SS, the stormtroopers, the police, all contribute to this Nazi-sponsored pogrom over the entire country. 30,000 young Jewish men are picked up and sent to concentration camps. About 100 people are killed. It's called Kristallnacht, Night of Broken Glass, for obvious reasons, because the stores were broken into, looted, burned, while the police and the fire stood outside to make sure the fire didn't spread to the non-Jewish residents or business. This is one of the synagogues in Berlin. You can use your imagination to say it must have been a magnificent structure prior to being burned and destroyed on that night. These are Torahs. The Torah is a sacred book to us, it's a scroll. I think I have another picture. Okay, it's a scroll. It takes a scribe a year to hand letter the Torah. It's the 5 books of Moses. It's the Word of God. It's holy to us. We read the 5 books of Moses portion by portion every week until the end of the year. Then we go back and read it again. And then in our synagogues we'll have Torahs. We will have our prayer books. We will have something called the Talmud, various interpretive books. I find it interesting. The Talmud is basically a legal text of secular and religious laws that the sages had written down starting about 200 BC to 200 AD. So if we go back in biblical history, Moses goes up Mount Sinai, the Bible is transmitted to him, and those laws are written down. There's 613 laws in the Bible, but there's an oral tradition that gets orally transmitted and memorized from Moses to Aaron to the prophets and on, and the sages kept that alive, but they decided they need to start writing it down. Okay, so they start writing it down. So to tell you what's in there, I mean, it tells you how you should light the candles, what things you should wear, but it's a legal text. How do you compensate your neighbor if your cow breaks out of your fence and starts eating his crop? That's in the Talmud, okay? That's in the Talmud. It's things like that. Well, how big is this thing? It's 50 volumes of legal law. It's the legal law like you would expect in any lawyer's library. So in our synagogues, there are Torahs, Talmud, prayer books, other interpretive books. And on that night, on Kristallnacht, the synagogues are invaded, burned, the books are brought into the street, and they're being burned. Heinrich Hesse, who was a German philosopher prior to Nazism, said, when people burn books, the next thing they'll do is they'll burn people. Sometime that night on Kristallnacht, my mother, who's probably about 15 years old, is looking down, and there must be a small synagogue on her street, and there's a bonfire where they brought the Torahs and the Talmud and the prayer books out in the street, and it's burning. After the rioters dissipate and there's no one around, she sneaks out of the house, goes down to the fire, the burning embers, and pulls a small fragment of parchment out of the fire and puts it in her Bible. This is written in German and Hebrew, and this is how she was learning, and she closes it and she keeps it. I'll come back to this and tell you a little bit more about it. All right. March is the Anschluss, 38. November 38 is Kristallnacht. Sometime in the spring of 39, she and her parents decide they got to get out of Nazi Austria, and they go to Warsaw where they have an aunt with whom they can live. So we're now in the spring of 39. What happens on September 1st, 39? The Nazis invade, and all of a sudden Poland falls very rapidly within 30 days, and Poland is controlled, and they're now back under Nazi domination. And the Nazis begin to form a ghetto, an enclosed space in which they force all the Jews. And it's not a very nice neighborhood. There's no running water, there's no heat, there's no sanitation, there's no food, and they're squashed into this area, 350,000 people in a very small portion of the city, and they're forced to live there. Okay, I'm going to read something now that was written by Carmen. Carmen was our housekeeper for about 20 years. Carmen was a very smart woman. She had been a lawyer and a journalist in Mexico, and she was in the unfortunate position that she had to work for us. She was basically a nanny to my daughter, a second mother to my daughter, and so we had a very nice relationship. We helped with her daughters when they went to college, and so it was a cooperative relationship. But Carmen would sometimes go over to my mother's house to assist her in her house, and my mother was more likely to talk to someone other than her family about what went on, but she didn't want to burden us. So Carmen wrote down my mother's words as best she could, and I'm reading it in Carmen's language. It's not perfect, but it sounds better to me if I read it that way. "Would you like to listen to a terror story?" Miss Tilly asked me. I answered her yes. She started to tell me. "During Nazi persecution, my family and I were held in a ghetto. I was a teenager, and my family group decided to find a way for me. Being the most youngest, they wanted me to survive. In my family, there was a rich and wealthy aunt. Then they thought she could provide me with gold so that I got out of the ghetto. I remember that my hands were filled with gold, and with that I started my dangerous departure. My first challenge, when I met the Nazi officer that guarded the ghetto, I still remember vividly the constant trembling of my body. I showed my shaking hands full of gold and asked him to take it and let me go. Then I had to cross a river. My mother was like lead in water. They come to my memories feeling of intense cold inside and outside of my body, immersed in the waters of that river. My goal was to reach what had been my house in Vienna, the home which my family and I were torn away from. Exhausted with an indescribable pain inside, to be aware that I would never see my family again, I followed my path alone, accompanied with an incessant crying that I never knew when it started and when it finished. I finally arrived to meet the desolation and sadness. At the moment I realized I had nowhere else to go and how alone I was. I stayed for several hours crying in the doorway of what had been my nest, my home, without knowing what to do. Such was my tribulation that I didn't know it at the time that one of my neighbors was next to me. He came out from hiding to offer me his helping and moral support. I obtained a visa for travel to the United States of America, a country where my sister lived. For a long time, a feeling of guilt haunted me. My recurring nightmare that I had many times, it was where I saw myself in the foreground, surrounded by my whole family, and suddenly Nazi officers arrived and they arrested them except me, who remained in the center of the whirlpool. Even if decades have passed, the void that my family left still latent in my life. I'm still looking for that warmth, that love that lacks, because my parents and my whole family were exterminated in the concentration camps. So, my mother's in the ghetto. She told us a few stories. She couldn't stand the crying of the hungry babies. My mother, it's hard for me to imagine my mother, this little girl. She would drop down in the sewers at night, find her way out of the ghetto, and bring sneak food into the ghetto. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. And this is a video. Yes. Can you help me play the video, sir? All right, I don't start it quite yet. I took this off the TV. It's from called, oh my gosh, I'm blocking. This is something, the Way of Us or something like that. And there's a little section in there. It's a true story about a family. It's a series on Hulu, and it's worth watching. And somewhere along the line, I don't remember the name, I took a little segment because to me, it's as close to what it must have been like when my mother escaped the ghetto. Go ahead.
Ja, je did. You did. We can't do that, Bella.
Yes, you can. I spoke to the foreman, Herr Meyer. I'm his most productive worker. I told him I got my work ethic from you. Took some convincing, but I'll give you a chance. He gave me papers. You could come right now.
Do you think they would just let us walk south of here? Even if your German says we can work for him, tell that to the guards. They'll laugh and put bullets in our heads.
You don't know that. We have Ludwig with us. Keep us safe. He'll explain. I'll explain.
Sweetheart, you have to go back without us.
What? No,
It's safer for you without us slowing you down.
you won't slow me down. You're both strong. You're hardworking.
Listen to your mother, Bella. We won't do that to you.
Do what to me? You're not making sense.
You have a much better chance without us.
I know you're scared. I understand.
We aren't scared.
We're not scared. We're tired. We can't run anymore.
But all we have to do is
Listen to us, love.
please. They've already taken Anna. You must try, at least.
Bella, this is something we can do for you. Give you the chance to survive. Be victorious.
But I don't want to survive without you. Please don't leave me alone. Please.
You're not alone. You're not alone. You have your
But I want you.
You have so much to live for. We want you to save yourself.
Why won't you listen? Please, Mom. Please, Mom. I beg you. I don't want to be on my own. I don't want to be on my own. Please come with me. Come with me. Please come with me. Please. Don't come with me. Come with me. Please.
Remember?
Okay. So my mother's sister had gotten out to the United States about a year earlier. And she had been working diligently trying to get 3 visas to bring the parents and my mother to the United States. The United States was grossly anti-Semitic. 65% did not want Jews in the United States. And the State Department was overtly anti-Semitic. Assistant Secretary of State Breckinridge Long, he put out memos to the consulate offices in Europe saying, do whatever you can to impede and stop the flow of immigration visas from Jews. Somehow she gets a visa for my mother. The American consulate in Vienna is able to get a message into the ghetto that if my mother can get back to Vienna, she can get a visa to come to the United States. She and her parents decide that she has to travel on her own. She now has to travel, and as far as we know, she walked the 450 miles in the fall, early winter of 39, back to Vienna. So to get out of the ghetto, she must have had some gold coins, and she bribes the guard and is able to get out. She comes to a bridge, and there's a Nazi guard, and she says, I didn't know if he would let me cross, if he would shoot me, if he would violate me in some way, if I should try to bribe him, but she gets across somehow. She gets to the Czechoslovakian border. She can't go through the border. There are German guards and Czechoslovakian guards and gates and everything. So she has to go through the woods at night along with other people. And as they're crossing in the middle of the night, gunfire erupts and everybody starts running. Next to her is a mother carrying a small baby, and they're running. A bullet hits the mother. The mother drops to the ground, drops the baby. The baby's wiggling and crying, and my mother says, I could not stop to pick up the baby. Now, I'm a nephrologist, I'm not a psychologist. My brother's a psychologist. But about 20 years ago, it dawned on us my mother had PTSD because she really didn't smile a lot. She really wasn't very touchy-feely. She was a very hardworking, very smart woman. But I'm afraid when she went to bed every night, she thought about, should she have picked up the baby? So she gets back to Vienna, goes back to her apartment. It's already been confiscated by someone. She's told she can live in the basement. She has to survive by finding food, soup kitchens and stuff like that, until the American embassy does all its stamping and she can get in and get things done. She has to report to the SS, and when she walks into the SS, there's the officer. You know, you can imagine him with all high collar and all the doodads on his chest. He's sitting at his desk. She stands up. She's 16 years old. She's standing up in front of his desk. She's terrified. He takes his gun and slaps it down in front of her. And just to add to her terror, while she has to tell him what she's doing to get out. So she gets her visa. So this passport says Staatlos, stateless. The Germans categorize people. The Aryan pure German was the top of the line, and down below that were lesser people, and then Poles and Ukrainians and the Gypsies, and the Jews were considered subhuman. So she's stateless. This is the visa. I want to pay a little attention to the dates for a minute. February 3rd, 1940, finally she gets a visa to go to the United States. February 5th, the Nazis give her permission to travel from Vienna to Rotterdam. She now has to go 650 miles across Germany. I don't even know how to get here. I don't know how to take a bus. I don't know how to take a bus from where I live over to the east side, or over here for sure. And, but she had to figure out, these people didn't travel like we do now. They didn't go places. She couldn't buy a ticket to Rotterdam. She couldn't buy a train ticket, overnight sleep. She had to find a train that went to Frankfurt. Get off in Frankfurt and show her paperwork to a guard. Would the guard let her pass? Would he accept it? In Frankfurt, she had to find the next train to Cologne, and from Cologne on into Rotterdam. These are various border crossings which document her movement. February 3rd, she gets the visa. February 5th, she gets permission. February 11th, she's in Rotterdam. February 11th, she finds a boat going to the United States, and she's out of Europe. She's 16 years old. That's when we figured this out, we realized what a hero she is. What a survivor she is, that she could figure this out. All right, what happened to this? Well, she had this with her, and when they went to Poland, she took it with her. And when she took her little knapsack or whatever she had from Poland back to Vienna, she took it with her. And across Europe, she took it with her. She brought it to the United States. About 15 years before she dies, she opens it up and shows my brother and me. And we look at this and, oh, that's really very interesting, and she puts it away. When she died, about 10 years ago now, we fortunately found it. We open it up, we look at each other and say, ooh, we better not just put this back in storage. We got to do something better than that. So we take it to the U.S. Holocaust Museum. It's the only such fragment relic from Kristallnacht that exists in the United States. And there are probably only 2 other such fragments that exist, one in the Frankfurt Holocaust Museum and one in Yad Vashem. It's delicate, light sensitive. They have not put it on display, although they said they were considerate, but so far they haven't done it. But they have possession of it now. This is a picture of my mother, probably when she was younger, and that's her sister with whom she lived. She came to New York. She completes high school. Basically, she already had chemistry, physics, and math. That had already been done. She had to take Americanization and English courses. She does a little bit of junior college, but she has to make a living. She wanted to be a doctor, and she was smart enough to do it, but she couldn't do that. I am sure she was happy when I became a doctor, but when her granddaughter became a doctor, whoa, that's when she was really happy. All right. So that's my mother in blue. It's a great slide because she stands out so nicely. And this is the family. The point is, from this one survivor, look what's left. And can you imagine if 6 million? There's a whole other concept I'm working on, is I want to show the students what Jewish people have produced for the world. Computers, chips, televisions, telephones, anti-ballistic missiles that can take out hypersonic missiles, Mazursky, music, literature. And that was all, well, some of that's after the war, some of that's before the war. And it's just, people don't understand what Jews have contributed to the world. Well, moving on. I'm changing stories. Let's see how much time I got. This is my father. My father's from Vienna also. However, they met in the United States. My father came from a working class neighborhood. He would have been a fullback for Dallas. He could put 100 kilos, 220 pounds, on his back and load the cart with coffee beans for his grandfather. And he was the horse for the cart and dragged the coffee beans around and made deliveries. For fun, he raced motorcycles, and apparently he must have created some infamy or fame. He came in second in an international race on his motorcycle. He comes home one day, and grandfather says, well, here's $1,000, 1,000 shillings. You need to leave right now. Says, why? What happened? Well, your brother and I were here, and the SS came looking for you. And they said, where's Sammy? And we said, we don't know. I says, when's he coming back? Well, we don't know. And so the two SS officers look at each other and say, you know, a Jew's a Jew, a Rosenblatt's a Rosenblatt. They take his brother, take him to Dachau, and put him in concentration camp. He ends up in Buchenwald, and I'll tell you his story in a minute. So my father has to get out. Guess he gets on his motorcycle and takes off, and he sneaks into Belgium 3 times. Gets thrown out twice. One time he snuck in the back of a coal car, in the brake car. It gets into Belgium somewhere. He gets out, walks down the platform, but an officer notices coal dust, asks him for his papers, which he doesn't have, throws him back. The next time he sneaks in, crosses the border at night, hitches a ride with someone. Now, my father had a gold bar mitzvah ring. Bar mitzvah is when a young Jewish man really reaches his religious maturity at age 13. He has to accept his religious responsibilities. He got a present. He had a gold ring, kind of like my wedding band. He traded that band with the driver to drive him as far from the border as he could so he could get away. He ended up in Brussels. Now, I had no idea what transgenerational trauma was until maybe about a year ago when someone mentioned to me. I had no idea until then why I walk around with a gold chain on my neck. And I think it's because this is my safety in case I need to protect myself. So he's in Belgium. Switch. Well, this is the store. Actually, the building still exists in Vienna on Norlichenfelder Strasse. Okay, switching stories, but they're going to come together. Anybody heard of the Kinder Transport? Yes. Yeah, okay, well that's good. So England said they would take about 10,000 Jewish children. They send social workers and nurses into German-held countries, and they walk up to you, and they walk up to your daughter and say, give us your 6-year-old. And she's...
Robert Rosenblatt.
Oh yeah, there's the other half. That's my other half. I am giving a lecture about mom. You'll have to call that. So, I mean, a lot of parents would say, no, it's bad, but how much worse could it get? But eventually, or ultimately, about 10,000 children were transported, 50 or 60 in a car with a couple of chaperones, sent across Europe and moved to England. In England, they were adopted, foster homes. Some were made into servants. Okay, so that was unfortunate. And so this is my father in Brussels. This is my cousin Henri, who was placed on the Kinder Transport. And my father knows he's coming, so when he gets to Brussels, instead of sending him on to England, he accepts him, and he sets Henri up. Oh, let me go one step. This is the brother who went to Dachau in Buchenwald, okay? But my family was able to bribe the SS and get him out. He's got 24 hours to get out of Europe. He leaves Buchenwald, goes to Brussels, says hello to his son, goes to England, is put in jail as a spy, okay? Eventually they figure out he's Jewish, he's safe, and they put him in British Expeditionary Forces in Army Intelligence because he can speak English and German. So he's part of British Expeditionary Forces, and he's with them for the Blitzkrieg, and in the Blitzkrieg he's ultimately evacuated to Dunkirk back to England. Okay, so that's them. My father has found a family, the Dorns, who have no children, a Jewish family, and they say they'll take care of Henri. Because my father's working on trying to get to the United States. And they take care of him. Well, what happened with the Blitzkrieg in June of 1940? Germany overflows the whole area, Nazi controls put in, and the Nazis begin to round up the Jews. In the first roundup, they missed the Dorns. The Dorns decide that they got to do something. They have a place they can live out in the country and hide, but they can't show up with a child because they don't have a child. They got to do something with the child. So there is a Christian laundress in their neighborhood in Brussels who says she'll take care of Henri. Henri lives, and you can imagine the story. She's got her laundry in the front and a kitchen, bedroom in the back, kind of probably a one-story thing. He lives, like Anne Frank, hidden for 2.5 years. Okay, he got out, he said, just a couple times. He can't play the radio. There's no television. He can't make noise. She goes to the library to get books for him. She can't go to the library and say, hey, I need a book for a 7-year-old and 8-year-old. What do you suggest? Because then she has a child that she doesn't have. So she starts picking books. The trouble is she's illiterate and she doesn't know what she's picking. So he recounts now how occasionally she would bring home inappropriate books for him to read. All right, this is Henri now. It was about 10 years ago already. He's in his 90s. He became a radio movie critic and then a TV movie critic. He did the first documentary on Tiananmen Square, for which he got an award. He wrote a book about his life called Son of Saul or something, and then a movie was made called The Way to Happiness. It was actually very good. It came out right at the beginning of COVID and just never quite broke through, unfortunately. But we showed it at the JCC once, and if you ever run into it, it's worth it. It's trying to tell a difficult story with a little bit of lighthearted humor. This is my father's immigration card. Just kind of a tidbit. Interestingly, he got here exactly 1 year after Kristallnacht. This is my wife's immigration card. My wife got to the United States when she was 2 years old. Her parents ended up in American displaced persons camp. Took a couple years of waiting to get their visas to come to the United States, and they eventually came to the United States. I'm going to try to tell you the story of her parents quickly. Cut me off if I'm running too long. This is Saul. He's from Lodz, Poland, Western Poland. The Nazis overrun it. And Bella is from Odessa, Russia, which is probably being bombed today by the Russians, who knows. And they meet. So what happens when the war breaks out, a lot of the men of Poland decide to move east and get away from the from the Germans. But what they don't know is on the 12th of September, there's a division between 5 minutes. There's a division, so he ends up getting captured by the Russians and ends up in Siberia in a work camp. Germany invades Russia. Russia now releases the Polish prisoners. He ends up going back to Middle Asia. When Germany invades Russia, they evacuate their non-combatants from Odessa, which is over here, basically 2,000 miles into Samarkand in that area. So he ends up meeting Bella there, and they become a couple. At the end of the war, they migrate back to Odessa. But when they get to Odessa, after living together for 2 years, a couple, he leaves. Why would he leave? Because he had to go back. Well, this is Lodz. This is the city of Lodz where he came from. This is the ghetto. This is what Lodz looked like at the end of the war. The Russians are trying to destroy it on the way in, and the Germans are trying to destroy it on the way out. The Russians want to destroy it because they want the population to be dependent on them. I'm missing some slides. All right, well, I'm missing some slides, I realize. All right, the slides here that I show, which I hope add some drama to it. He leaves Odessa to go back to Lodz to look for his wife, his child, his sister, his brother, and another brother. My wife does not know that he had another family until after he dies. That was kept a family secret. They're gone. They've been killed by the Nazis. He goes back to Odessa, teams up with Bella. They traipse across, walk across Southern Europe, get into Allied territory, and a couple years later come to the United States. 1945, January, it's very, very cold. It's a mini ice age. The Germans are in full retreat. They're trying to destroy the evidence of their camps. They're bulldozing them when they can, blowing them up when they can. They're taking their viable prisoners, slaves, Jews, and marching them towards the next camp where they can continue to work to manufacture stuff for them. So this is called the Death March. I want to play this, please. Okay. This testimony is from Willie Luxembourg. I met Willie Luxembourg when I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old. My parents go to synagogue on Yom Kippur. There's this young family that are kind of disconnected from the congregation. They go up and introduce themselves. On Yom Kippur, we don't eat or drink for 24 hours, and afterwards we break fast. So they invite the Luxembourgs to join us for break fast, and it's from them that I heard this story first time.
The condition of the march. When you march, most of us couldn't hardly walk. We just keep on going, like pushing our feet, sliding. And for myself, I had my feet swollen, and I knew the end was going to be soon because I just could not walk anymore. And I was walking like my nerves were carrying me. I was just going like this. And the way you march is when you look around, you find yourself to be the last one in the column. You don't want to be the last one because if you get the last one, you mostly get shot. So you push forward. You constantly, without anybody prodding you, we were moving fast because nobody want to be the last. The minute you look around, you find yourself the last in the column, you go beyond everybody, push forward till you fall back again. And me being so emancipated and couldn't walk anymore, every time I heard a shot, you heard shots all night long. I would have instinctively such a reflex because I felt I felt that's going to be me next. And as I walked, my wooden shoes somehow or other, my feet hit each other and I fell. And I closed my eyes. And nothing happened. And I look at the corner of my eyes and I've seen the column walking down the road. And I felt good. My feet, they couldn't carry me. I was laying there on the side of the road in the snow. And I could have died there. I felt real good. I was in peace with myself. I didn't have to walk. And apparently in the morning, a farmer went by, must have heard me moaning, and he picked me up, put me on the wagon, and brought me into this barn.
All right, I heard this story when I'm 7, 8 years old. Helen Willie had survived Dachau and the Death March. That's where I saw numbers for the first time. And I'm driving to work about 1989 when the U.S. Holocaust Museum was about to open, and they had little tiny vignettes on NPR where they would talk about this museum that was about to open in Washington. I hear a story about a man when the Death March falls by the wayside, picked up by a farmer, and the uniform that he had placed in the farmer's barn, he went back to get. The uniform that was initially, I don't know if it's still there, on display at the Holocaust Museum was Willie Luxembourg. They say the uniform of Willie Luxembourg. I'm driving to work up Wurzbach going to the medical center. I almost had to pull the car over. Now, this was my story I'm hearing on the radio, what I grew up with. I'm going to race here and see what I can accomplish. Arbeit macht free. This is an entrance to one of the camps. Work makes you free. Gerd Miller, Sergeant Gerd Miller, still lives here. I think he's still alive. He immigrated from Europe to the United States in 38, 39, goes to high school, goes into Army intelligence because he's bilingual and Jewish, and he's with American troops at D-Day for the next 9 months to work as an interpreter for them. And he is now in Munich in March of 1945, and he gets told that he needs to go up to this darn camp they just found up north of of Munich, and so they go to Dachau. He's driving there in an open Jeep. As he approaches the camp, starts smelling worse and worse and worse as he gets closer and closer. And it looks nice from the outside, green, some buds on the trees. Now he's with battle-hardened troops. These guys have survived D-Day, have been slogging across Europe for 9 months. These are guys who have been shot, returned to service, seen their friends die, seen the worst of everything. And when he goes into the camp, he sees American soldiers, but some of them are sitting on the ground vomiting. Some of them are sitting on the ground crying because of what they're seeing. This is what you look like after 2 to 3 months on 180 calories. A train had pulled in, they didn't bother to open the doors, it had been there locked up for 2 or 3 days. Another 2,500 people were dead. Bielski brothers, I'll skip. Elie Wiesel got the Nobel Prize. For the dead and the living, we must bear witness, which is why I'm here today. Thank you. All right, I raced through the last part of that. You have any questions? I'm at your disposal.
Any questions?
Go for it. I believe in that. I send my patients.
We have a mic. You got mic over there? Yeah, if you can. Do you have a question? No? No questions? Got a question back over here, Bruce, please.
Thank you for coming to talk to us. My question, what are your hours over at the museum? And we're not kids, we just want to go. Can we go at any time?
You can go at any time. There might be a class going on. You can sit in on the class. If you came right at the beginning, there'd be about 2 hours long. With the history lecture, this kind of lecture similar to mine, but the displays are available. Outside there's some display. You could call ahead. Hours, I think 9 to 3.
9 to 3, and you do recommend we call ahead?
Well, if you want to probably sitting in the lectures is probably good too, but reading the panels. There's a small museum, but reading the panels that are up there that describe the history is very, very informative. And a lot of pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right?
They sure are. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
coming.
Yes, ma'am.
You did this to honor your mom. Did she have any idea that you would be able to express what happened to her in such a lovely way? Did she know that you were going to be able to do that?
I don't think I was doing, the question was, did my mother have been aware of this? I don't think I was doing this while she was still alive, right? But she trained me well. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you've got a mic coming, please.
I'm just wondering, has there been, I'm sure there has been speculation as to why the Jewish race has been so persecuted throughout centuries.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2,400 years of history in 2 minutes. Okay? All right, ready? 400 BC, if you look at Greek literature, they are already talking about these Ivri, these people, who are separate tribe, who don't believe in Zeus and Athena and Mercury and all that, and they're different, so they're being bullied. Now you go to about 400 AD, after Jesus, the Christian church begins to say Jews killed Jesus. Well, the Romans killed him, but that's what they were telling. And if you're uneducated, you go to church, and that's what they're telling you. That's what you're going to believe. Okay? And the Jews are different. They maintain themselves. They kind of keep to their religion. Somehow we've survived for 3,000 years. Okay, praying the same way, basically. So we've always we've always been different. Restrictions have forced things on us. For instance, you couldn't be a landowner in Europe. So what did you do? You became a merchant. Well, that, fortunately, was a way you made money, because if you were a farmer, you were a subsistence farmer, and you needed a merchant to buy your tools. So they ended up with money, and they ended up, loaning it to the king. And then what he did is threw him out when he owed him too much money. So you got that. So they're being different. I mean now, you got all these other reasons going on why we're looked upon so differently. It's hard to explain. We have been major contributors to mankind for a long time in a lot of positive ways, but the other thing is the idea of scapegoating, okay? When something goes bad in a country, it's always easy. Well, that's what the Nazis did. It says, why did we lose the war? The Jews and the communists. Why is the economy so bad? The Jews and the economists. They say we control the banks and the newspapers and all that. Well, no way in heck do we do that, because obviously we don't, but that's what's said out there, So.
All right, thank you, Susan.
All right.
Any other questions? Well, look, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to give you the magazine, and here's a little memento from the Art
Thank you.
Challenge Forum.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day.